Today, we are diving into a really fascinating condition. It's one of those things that sounds almost like science fiction. A problem in your liver can cause a serious, but often reversible, state of confusion in your brain. It's called hepatic encephalopathy.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth does a sick liver manage to reach up and mess with your brain's wiring? We're talking about everything from just being a little forgetful all the way to a full-blown coma. It's a connection that's as direct as it is surprising, and we're going to unpack it.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on what this condition actually is and why reversible is such a key word. Then we'll get into the really cool part. What happens when the body's main detox plant fails? After that, we'll look at what can push the system over the edge, how to spot the warning signs, and finally, how doctors can step in and get things working again.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. What are we actually talking about when we say hepatic encephalopathy? Now, the single most important word to hang on to here is reversible. This is super serious, no doubt, but it's not always permanent damage.
The official definition tells us that hepatic encephalopathy, or HE for short, isn't just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of problems, ranging from little personality quirks to major brain issues. And whenever you see it, it's a huge red flag that the liver has gone from just being sick to being decompensated, which is a fancy way of saying it's really failing to do its job.
Now, HE isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. You've got a few different types. Type A happens with sudden, catastrophic liver failure. Just out of the blue. Type B can be a consequence of a specific medical procedure. But the one we're going to zero in on today is Type C. This is the classic one, the one that builds up over time in people with long-term chronic liver disease.
So how does a sick liver pull this off? How does it actually interfere with the brain? Well, the best way to wrap your head around it is to picture your liver as this incredible high-tech detox plant for your entire body.
Think about it. Every single day, this amazing plant is filtering your blood, pulling out all sorts of garbage and toxic stuff. But when you have advanced liver disease, that plant starts to shut down. The assembly line breaks, the filters get all clogged up, and all that toxic waste that's supposed to be removed, it's not. It just stays in the bloodstream and starts to build up. And the number one villain in this story is a toxin called ammonia. Here's how it all goes down. Normally, the bacteria in your gut are making ammonia all the time. No big deal. It goes to your healthy liver, which easily converts it into something harmless. But when your liver is sick, that whole process just stops. The ammonia doesn't get cleared. Instead, it gets a free pass to travel right up to the brain, where it starts to poison these really important brain cells called astrocytes. That's the root of the problem.
But here's the thing. It's not just ammonia. Ammonia is definitely the ringleader, but there's a whole cocktail of other nasty stuff that the liver should have taken care of. Things like mercaptans and manganese also get into the bloodstream and head for the brain, just adding fuel to the fire. It's a full-on chemical assault.
Okay, so you might be wondering, if someone has chronic liver disease, why aren't they just confused all the time? What is it that suddenly pushes this fragile system right over the edge into a full-blown episode of HE? Well, these are what we call triggers, or precipitating factors.
It can be something like a bad infection or some bleeding in the stomach. Even something as simple as being really constipated can do it. See, all of these things dramatically crank up the amount of ammonia your body produces. It's like sending a tidal wave of toxic waste to that detox plant that's already barely hanging on. The whole system just gets overwhelmed, and the brain is what suffers.
So we know the cause, we know the triggers, but what does this actually look like in a person? Well, doctors have a really clear system for this. They grade the severity of HE, which is super helpful for tracking how things are going and what treatment is needed.
It's all broken down into grades. It starts out as covert, which means it's kind of hidden. Maybe just a short attention span or messed up sleep, stuff that's really easy to brush off. But then it becomes overt or obvious. By grade 2, you might see personality changes. By grade 3, the person is really confused and disoriented. And then there's grade 4, which is the most dangerous stage of all, a coma.
And there's one classic physical sign I've got to point out, asterixis. This is the famous flapping tremor. If you ask someone in grade 2 HE to hold their hands out, kind of like they're stopping traffic, you'll see their hands involuntarily flap. It's a telltale sign that these toxins are hitting the brain hard.
All right, so we've covered the problem, the cause, and the warning signs. Now let's get to the most important part. How do we fix it? How do you get that detox plant back up and running? Or at least, how do you handle all that toxic overload? The treatment is actually pretty brilliant, and it follows two main strategies. The first is what I like to call the ammonia trap.
Doctors give a special sugar called lactulose. Your body can't absorb it, so it goes down to your gut, changes the environment, and literally traps ammonia so it can be, flushed out of your system. The second strategy is the bacteria reducer. This uses an antibiotic called Rifaximin to simply lower the number of those ammonia-making bacteria in the first place. Fewer bacteria means less ammonia. It's beautifully logical.
And of course, there are other tools in the kit. There's another compound called LOLA, which works in a slightly different way but has the exact same goal. Get those toxic ammonia levels down and give the brain a chance to recover.
And that's where we'll leave it. We've seen how hepatic encephalopathy is this direct result of a failing liver, a flood of toxins that basically short-circuits the brain. But, and this is the hopeful part, we've also seen that it's treatable and often reversible. Which brings us to one last thing to think about. Even if the confusion goes away, what are the hidden costs? What happens to a brain that has been put under siege like that over and over again?